Recording in
Those of you on the Zoom, we'll wait a couple more minutes. It seems like well, let's come to order. It's 10:31, and we've still got a few members not here, but we did have a quorum. So I'd like to welcome everybody, and for those of you, do we have people on the Zoom? One, welcome whoever that is, and we're glad you're here. Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Dean. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda that was previously circulated? Ready to move that? Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? There being none, the agenda is adopted. Next, we have the minutes, which Angie circulated. Let's take up the minutes of November 11th. And I know Mr. Dean had some suggested corrections, which he has sent to Angie and copied all the members. And Angie sent an email this morning saying she'd already incorporated them. Would you like to make a formal motion, though, that be amended in that respect?
Sure, since I've already sent them out and distributed them to everybody, I will not go back through them, but assuming everybody had a chance to read them, I would move that we make the amendments that I suggested in the email and distributed to everybody.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Are there any other proposed amendments that anyone has to the November 11th? And let's move to adopt them as amended. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes of November 19th, that same thing, Dan? Did you have some suggestions?
I actually did have one, and I did not circulate it. It was so trivial, I actually thought of it later. Under new business where it says, Dandy moved to ratify the slate of the comprehensive plan steering committee candidates. I would suggest is inserting the word the attached slate and just attaching that slate that Angie had distributed at that meeting, just so the names of the actual people we're nominating are somewhere in the midst.
That makes good sense.
Yeah.
Is there a second to that? Second. All, any discussion? Angie, will that be any problem for you to do that?
Just insert that one word and just
Right.
attach that list to the minutes.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? There being no other amendments, those minutes also stand as approved. Going back to our agenda, one of the things we still have remaining before us that has grown out of the zoning ordinance changes was some additional changes to the signage provisions of the zoning ordinance that Susan Taylor Rash had suggested. I have asked, subject to the approval of the commission, if John Hinkle would chair a small subcommittee on that, and John has agreed to do that if that is permissible to the commission. And John and I've talked about it, and we've suggested, if you concur, that Sally Stansel and Dan Dean be added to that committee. And just as a word, we don't anticipate this occurring immediately because I think we have an informal understanding that we don't want to amend the zoning ordinance any further until this administrative proceeding is completed because we don't want to mess up the zoning ordinance for them. So y'all wouldn't start till January and probably be February by the time. Not encourage you to get Susan Taylor Ratch. So would someone, if that is the will of the body, would you move to appoint such a committee with those names?
So moved.
Is there a second? Are there any other names to suggest? There being none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There being none, that passes. And John, good luck to you and your committee. And the staff will be available. Scott will be available, and Susan Taylor Rash will, and Alex will be too. The next item, item 5, I just wanted to remind you, Tom Whitmer and I were talking the other day, and he said, gosh, maybe one time of somebody that said we realized that almost all of us have terms expiring, and we suggested that the commission, the town council might want to consider redoing those terms, but we don't need to do that now. So I just wanted to encourage everyone on the commission who got from Angie one of these applications. I really hope y'all will complete those and submit them. I think the date is December 31st. I just so you know, I have done that. If y'all don't want me to do that, I'll withdraw that. And we'll go on from there. But I wanted to encourage people to do that. Any questions about that? Okay. Next, Roman numeral 6, a discussion of our next meeting, which is scheduled for January the 13th. Scott and I talked briefly about this, but the agenda and subjects, we did not have any suggestions at this point, particularly since John's committee on the signs probably will have just gotten started. Y'all will recall, though, that we did ask the town council to approve setting up a stormwater committee. Hopefully they will act on that tonight. I don't know whether I don't know if that's on the agenda or not. Oh, that's right, the funding, that's right. So that may or may not be by then, but I would anticipate that we'll have something on, at least to talk about it, about stormwater at that point. Anybody else have any business that they want us to suggest?
Looking at today's agenda, I spent some time deciding what question that we've gotten about sign content. So, sign downtown. And so it looked to me like something page 9 of the sign ordinance. Page 4.9. Special event of signs. Signs providing notice of upcoming events or gatherings of special interest to the public, including meeting dates and locations, may be displayed, but only in accordance with the following requirements. It seems like the signs about the hotel fall in that category of special interest and upcoming events and meeting dates related to it and so forth. And so it seemed like that those signs are actually probably covered under this definition. And they shall be placed no earlier than 15 days before the event. 2 days after the event. Since the event's gonna last 6 months.
That's true.
It seems so that this ordinance existed and we haven't paid attention to it. We have an awful lot of signs and such around town.
Would you like to just suggest that Scott look into that? it is proceeding now. I think their next hearing is scheduled for Monday, is that right?
Yes.
And then there's another one tentatively, or at least reserved for the fall.
You're asking about the Board of Adjustment hearing on the MRA proposal? Yes, that is for Monday, December 13th, tentatively for Wednesday, the 15th, and no dates certain past that. Is that correct?
Wade, I guess you could say that those are political
Yeah.
content signs, and they're not talking about schedule, so they would fall within the permissive activities of the ordinance. Mason, do you have anything to say?
Well, I just wanted to, the way that I understand this, I've read, the reason, the genesis for revising this ordinance is a Supreme Court decision I wasn't aware of, and I don't, I was last up to date on First Amendment law about 40 years ago. So
40 years ago.
Yeah, 40 years ago. So, this decision really changes the rules, and essentially our restriction on and what it basically says is your restrictions have to be content neutral. And our restrictions, including our restrictions on temporary signage, are not content. And so even if we were to enforce that, frankly, under the existing Supreme Court decision, it would be invalid. So besides, on top of that fact, it's political speech, which is protected under the First Amendment, and that much I do remember. So it makes it even more problematic. So frankly, I'm tired of seeing all the signs, but I'm not sure that there's, at least until the ordinance is scrubbed to be content neutral, that there's much we can do to I think we'd be sending Alex down a rabbit hole trying to enforce these ordinances. I don't like that way, but sometimes the law is what it is. And this Supreme Court decision, whether I agree with it or not, there's a lot I'm not sure I'm happy with.
Well, Dan and I were talking about that last night. The decision is 3-3, or the School of Government was 3-3-3, and he couldn't figure out what the decision was saying. So we'll have.
No, I know. That's the other thing, Wade. There were like 3 or 4 concurring decisions, which means it's hard to figure out what thread through all of the concurring decisions and the majority of decisions is the actual law at the end of the day. It's very difficult.
Well,
It's definitely not a clear-cut decision. That's what it's saying we should do.
well, plus another peculiarity, it's looking to influence a quasi-judicial thing, but we have folks outside the Supreme Court, about the hundreds last week, with different positions. So it's just unique. I will say that Richard DeBose had a comment on this with regard to the signs. I hope it's okay if I say it. He said there's 2 ways of looking at it. Looking at the way Sheriff Taylor would do it and look at the way Barney would do it. And Barney'd go out there and nip it in the bud and he'd be taking signs down.
Then he'd have to go back up and put them up.
And Andy,
Which would be exactly what Andy Griffith would have done.
and Andy would say, well, they'll rot to the ground after a while. Go on back. So,
But even in front of the Supreme Court, people are entitled to stand and wave their signs, and their only restrictions is to time, place, and manner. And it's got to be, those restrictions have to be reasonable. So it is what it is.
John?
Yeah, I don't think we want to do anything with this, the planning and zoning board to give the perception that we are for or against the signs at this particular point.
Right.
I think we need to wait till it's all been resolved, and then we can take a position to do signs, the ordinance that was put in place.
That's what I thought we had agreed with. And also, you're going to be considering with Susan the constitutional issues. I think that. So thank you, Wade. Any other comments? Any public comments? Anyone who's on the Zoom? Would they like to say anything? Okay, that's all the business I have on the agenda that we've reached. And we can stay here and if y'all would like, or we can move to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Not hearing a second. Is there a second?
Well, what's coming next? I'm interested in what's
We don't
coming
know
next.
yet. We're going to discuss. I just said, the only thing we really knew was signs are going to wait probably. Stormwater is before the council. Alex said that there was an issue with funding. We would probably just have a report. Because remember, we requested the council to approve the report.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question popped in my brain. Since we're kind of in a holding pattern to some extent on various issues, would it be appropriate to return to our normal meeting schedule as opposed to our enhanced schedule?
I thought you were going to say something about that. So if we
Just a
did that,
question.
that would
I'm
mean
just
that we would
posing a
meet.
question. Well, we would meet in January anyway, even under the old schedule. It's just something to think about. I'm not
Sure, I
proposing
agree
we
with that.
change it right
In
now.
January, one item of business is we do need to elect
Organizational meeting, exactly.
the president, vice president, whatever you
Chair,
call them.
chair, vice chair.
Chair
secretary.
And secretary. So we'll have that. And then we can certainly discuss whether we need to meet every.
Just throwing out the thought. Just
Well,
food for thought.
there'd been discussion, which I raised about looking at the Graybeard ETJ as a R4 zoning.
And that's before the council to consider. Whether
Is that on the agenda?
but that is a.
Or maybe we need to renew the request of the council. So that makes the next agenda.
Scott and I'll figure out a way to word that. That's a good suggestion. We need to not forget that. Okay, there's a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, and don't forget to get your forms in.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry
Yes,
Christmas,
Merry
everyone.
And was that our next meeting be January then?
That's meeting January the 13th. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for attending. Ms. Alexander, thank you for attending. We are adjourned.